Today, I've got a super unique Warlock tank build for you. It specializes in fearing not only single targets, but also mass amounts of targets. It's going to be called the Dreadnought. As for our lineage, we definitely need to be a Dragonborn from Fizzbands because we want to get those extra breath weapon attacks per day. Which Dragonborn you choose is completely up to you. I went with the Gem Dragonborn because flight is excellent and having resistance to psychic damage is awesome. Charisma is going to be our primary stat. Strength is going to be our secondary, and Constitution is going to be our tertiary. However, you do need to start with good strength and Constitution, even if you have to sacrifice a bit of Charisma, but Charisma is going to be the one that we're investing in as we're leveling up. First level, we're going into Fighter. This is going to give us proficiency in our Constitution saves, which is going to be amazing because we're an up-close spellcaster, so we're going to be getting hit, and we have to do those concentration checks, so glad we have that. It's also going to increase our tankiness a significant amount by giving us heavy armor, giving us the defensive fighting style, and giving us second wind. So that first level in Fighter, crucial. Second level onward, we're going to be going straight Undead Warlock. Now that first level Warlock, we get Form of Dread. This does amazing things for a tank. It gives us temporary HP, makes us immune to the fear condition, as well as be able to spread the fear condition to anyone we hit with an attack. Which attack we're using? Well, I chose to go with a Greataxe. A glaive is totally an option, and since we're fearing people, you can totally set it up where you can hit people and they can't come towards you to hit you. So the glaive's kind of more defensive. However, Greataxe is more offensive. We can use it in Booming Blade at our ideal range, as well as later levels that extra D12 of damage can get compounded. We'll talk about that a bit later though. At the end of the day though, what mattered most to me is I just thought the Greataxe was cooler than the glaive, so I chose to take it. As for our cantrips, we need Booming Blade and we need Eldritch Blast. Eldritch Blast as our ranged option, Booming Blade because for levels 1 through 4, we can use it to do extra potential damage with our Greataxe attacks. Spells aren't the biggest deal for us. Hex can increase our damage a bit and we don't really have a bonus action to use, so sure, why not? Armor of Agathis is nice to pad our HP, especially in combats with a bunch of little enemies that are attacking us in swarms, melee little enemies. As for our second level spells, I look at Invisibility because our stealth is going to be hot garbage, so maybe it'll help us get through some of those checks that otherwise we could not pass. Overall though, just pick whatever you think feels best for those first 2 levels of spells. We're going to be taking Pact of the Blade, and right away we want to pick up Improved Pact Weapon just to make our weapon better in melee. As for our second invocation, there are options, but I'm definitely taking Devil's Sight. We don't have Dark Vision as a Dragonborn, so this just kind of takes care of that problem for us. If you don't care about that, then you can take something like Eldritch Mind to increase your Constitution saves, or you can take something like Fiendish Vigor if you want to be a bit more tanky. So for our first ASI, we are picking up Dragon Fear the Feat. So now we have multiple ways to spread our fears. We can hit one target and we spread a pretty basic fear, and then we have Dragon Fear to spread to the masses. Now at this point, every time we hit someone, they have to make a save against our charisma and they get feared, and then if there's a bunch of enemies, now we can use Dragon Fear to fear a whole bunch of them all together. And what's really incredible about Dragon Fear is if they get that fear, they can't save against it for the next minute. They are just stuck there until we hit them. So it's a divide or conquer type thing. Everyone who we feared, we just kind of ignore and we go smack other people to spread our fear to them using our weapon. It's basically a concentrationless 3rd level fight winning spell, which is incredible that we can do proficiency times a day. It just takes our team fight level from being decent with a couple of 3rd level spells to insane with essentially 3 to 4 more of those spells per day. Incredible. Another nice thing about it is that if we were doing the fear spell, that affects our teammates. If we were doing the summon shadow spawns fear, that affects our teammates, but Dragon Fear does not. We can target specifically our enemies. So if there's just a mess of people fighting in close ranged combat, we can still pop it and still get all the benefits. So it's really easy to use on top of being super powerful. Dragon Fear is completely underrated. So we are actually fantastic tanks, and we play a lot like a Cavalier would or an Ancestral Guardians Barbarian would, where we find the most dangerous enemy, hit them, try and debuff them, but where we shine where they don't is if there's a whole bunch of enemies, we can debuff a ton of them, so it's just really hard to hit our allies. Not only that, we also gain the benefits. Unlike Ancestral Guardians, we are attacked at disadvantage as well. It's not automatic like Ancestral Guardians, so it is a give and take, so keep that in mind. Once we hit Warlock 5, we get our signature spell, which is going to be Summon Shadow Spawn, the Frenzy version. Now the Frenzy version, not only does it have its own AoE fear, so we have another way to spread a ton of fear, but it also gets advantage on all attacks if they're afraid, which if you haven't been paying attention is going to be all the freaking time. Shadow Spawns also do decent damage, and that advantage is going to be substantial. Another great spell for us is the Fear spell. It's harder to aim, it can affect our allies, but when it debuffs hard. It's a special kind of fear that is just way more brutal than the normal kind of fear that we're usually giving away. We're also going to use our invocation at this level to get Thirsting Blade, giving us the extra attack feature essentially. Moving up in level, Summon Shadow Spawn is going to be our primary packed spell slot the whole time. We're just going to keep using it often. Once we hit those 4th level packed slots, it gets 2 attacks. Both are going to be an advantage. It doubles its damage. Really fantastic. And it's also just a very tanky summon, so that's nice to have running around with us and our team. At Warlock 6, we're picking up Grave Touch. Grave Touch lets us do our weapons weapons damage dice or just our attacks damage dice once per turn. This is why we take a Greataxe over, say, a Maul, because we don't want those 2d6 because it'd only be giving us an additional d6. Now it gives us an additional d12, and that's all in necrotic damage. And that does matter that it becomes necrotic damage, but that's going to matter later. So I'll talk more on that. For now, it's just doing extra damage for us, turn in and turn out. Awesome. Some other cool things that the Undead Warlock gives us is it gives us Death Ward. Death Ward is awesome because right before we take a short rest, we can throw it on ourselves, take a short rest, and for the next 7 hours, we still keep it. On top of that, once we hit 10th level, we get Necrotic Husk, which is like Death Ward. When we're knocked, we go to 1 HP instead. So now we have 2 Death Wards on us. Pretty awesome for a tank. But the Necrotic Husk Death Ward is particularly good because when it happens, we explode in a 30-foot radius. We do 2d10 damage plus our Warlock level to all enemies within 30 feet of us. So why is necrotic damage important to us? It really isn't until we hit Warlock 14 and we get our subclass capstone feature, Spirit Projection. Spirit Projection, while we have it activated, any necrotic damage we deal is healed to us in half. The Spirit Projection is still healing us that 2d12 that we're dealing every single turn. And it, of course, heals half of it. So it's gonna be like 1d12 plus half our strength. Spirit Projection also gives us a flying speed similar to our gem Dragonborn. We have a couple different ways of getting flying speed, which can be really useful for a tank if we need to chase down a dragon or do something in the air. We have options. And probably most importantly, Spirit Projection means we're taking half damage like a barbarian. So what are we at the end of the day? Well, we have ranged options, we have melee options for days. We are fantastic at spreading fear. Fear is an awesome tanking debuff to be spreading around. It controls their movement and it makes them attack at disadvantage at all times. And we're so good at spreading it. Not only are we good at spreading it, we're good at capitalizing on the spread with someone like Summon Shadowspawn Frenzy to increase our damage output. Our damage is fantastic between the two of us and we're controlling at the same time. We have great AC, we have great constitution saves. Where are our weaknesses? Well, our wisdom saves are definitely going to be a weakness. We can't afford to invest heavily in our wisdoms, and wisdom saves are so debilitating that I do recommend at some point picking up the resilient wisdom feat. Also, once people are immune to fear, that's going to happen a lot at later levels. Immunity to fear becomes pretty regular. At that point, we have to start adapting our tactics. Maybe summon a different shadow spawn or start summoning an undead, change it up. You're going to have other tactics in your back pocket. But when they're not immune to fear, we are going to be rough to deal with. I think my favorite thing about this build is the fact that we're a tanking warlock. We are up close and personal with a big old axe and heavy armor. Most people do not see a warlock doing that, and I think we do it pretty freaking good. I think we are actually significantly powerful tanks, and it just seems like a fun build to play. I build hundreds of builds, and I know when there is a really good one because I can just feel like, man, I gotta play that, and this is one of those builds. So hopefully you guys like it as much as I do. Let me know any thoughts you guys have on how to improve it or other cool things we could do along the same lines. Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to support the channel and get some awesome benefits at the same time, check out our Patreon. But other than that, my friends, have yourselves a killer day, and I'll see you on the next one. Later.